Mr. President, I come to the floor today with outrage over what some of the pharmaceutical companies have been doing with pricing for important medication affecting the lives of people in this country. And I know that you, Mr. Presiding Officer, from the State of Rhode Island, have been a leader in this healthcare area and share many of the concerns that I have and are in fact working on this issue as well. Yesterday, Mr. President, I chaired a hearing at the Joint Economic Committee to discuss the phenomenon of these price increases, dramatic price increases with these medications. These are drugs that, because of aggressive pricing practices, have seen dramatic increases in cost. Oftentimes, because of a limited market or other factors, the drug's price goes up to an astronomical level. I first became aware of this issue, Mr. President, when I received words from Children's Hospital in Minneapolis, one of the leading children's hospitals in the country, that the price for a drug called Indocin, it's also known as indomethacin, has increased substantially. It's a medication used to treat patients, little babies, with patent ductus arteriosus, also called PDA, and it's a disorder that prevents holes from healing in the hearts of premature infants. This drug has actually been around since the 1970s, and it is the commonly used method of treating this condition. And it's a great thing because it allows the doctors to prescribe medication instead of resorting to surgery. We had an event in Minnesota a few months ago with the head of Children's Hospital and a number of doctors that are specialists in this area, and a family named the Bensons, whose little child survived because of the help of this drug. And to see this little baby, and then to think of what this drug company had done when they jacked up the price of this drug, you cannot even imagine why they would have done such a thing. And I'll go into the facts. So this drug around since the 70s, Merck had the drug, this drug called Indocin. 2 years ago, Ovation Pharmaceuticals acquired the rights to the drug from Merck. The company quickly increased the price by more than 18 times, from $100 a dose to $1,800 a dose. Was there research? No. Was there more changes to the drug? No. It was the very same drug. And they increased the price, because they could, from $100 to $1,800 a dose for 3 1-milligram units of the drug. And even though it's an American company, and this is what really gets outrageous, even though it's American companies, the price that Ovation charges for this life-saving drug for babies is now 44 times higher in the United States than what they sell it for in Canada. 44 times higher in the United States than what they sell the same drug for in Canada. Nothing can justify this kind of price disparity, except that this company wants to bring in more money into their coffers. As it happens, there is only one other drug approved by the FDA for this heart problem, a formulation of intravenous ibuprofen. Ovation, interestingly enough, the same company that bought the drug from Merck, when Merck was selling it was $100, now it's up to $1,800. This same company, Ovation, is the sole source of the other drug in the United States. And not surprisingly, the price that it charges for this medicine is nearly identical to what it charges for Indocin. A number of other Ovation products have seen similar drastic price increases. Drugs that, like Indocin, have been around for a long time and are the premier treatments for a number of diseases. In a recent article in the medical journal Pediatrics, Dr. Alan H. Jobe of Cincinnati Children's Hospital described Ovation's pricing of its drugs for the premature baby's heart condition as quite extraordinary. Now, he didn't mean extraordinary in a good way. He wrote words such as unconscionable, unethical, and socially irresponsible come to mind. So the issue we have is that an upstart company purchases a number of drugs from another company, and even though these drugs have been on the market for years, the upstart company increases the prices drastically. But Ovation isn't the only company engaged in this disturbing trend. Now look at this chart, and it shows why this is a timely issue as we approach the major health care debate that we're going to be going into next year. Look why this is such a timely issue. In 1998, these are what we call, using the doctor's language, extraordinary price increases. Well, what this chart shows is that they're becoming more and more common. You look, what this measures is the number of branded drug products whose prices have more than doubled in a single price increase. Now, we're used to going to the grocery store, sadly, these days, and seeing 1% increase, 5%, increases going up. But then we see other markets, like, for instance, the oil market, where things are completely volatile. Well, here you have it in the drug market. Look at all these drug products where the prices have more than doubled in one single price increase. One single price increase. Back in 1988, it only happened 5 times. Back in 1994, it happened 0 times. And then you see this gradual trend upward to where we are now, where in the year 2008, it has happened 64 times. And this is a full year projection based on 6 months of data. So this is a projection of 64 times, and then in 2007, you see, it was at 47 times. Questor Pharmaceuticals, and this is an example, was once losing money at the rate of $1 million a month. The company's fortunes turned around after they purchased HP Acthar from Aventis. This drug was approved in the 1950s. Similar situation, drug approved years and years ago to treat multiple sclerosis, but it is now primarily the gold standard for treating infantile spasms, a disorder that affects about 2,000 families in the United States. We were privileged to have one of the families from Rhode Island, the home of the presiding officer, there with us at the hearing. And the mother that testified, I will never forget her story about how her little baby is sick in the hospital, suddenly having spasms. And these could actually affect his brain. His name's Trevor. And he's in the hospital, and she tries to get the drug that helps with this Acthar, and she finds out it's about $2,000 per vial at the initial stages. That's what they thought it was going to be. But then what happens? Once it was sold to Questor, when her little baby needed this drug, the price of the drug skyrocketed to $23,000 per vial. That is a 14-fold increase. So this mom and the dad are in the hospital with their little baby Trevor, and this drug's gone up to $23,000 per vial. What do you think is going to happen? You think the insurance company, when they used to pay for it, when it was $2,000, is going to say, oh, no problem? So they had to negotiate for 5 days with this insurance company. They had to get their neurologist involved, and she had to write a letter that this is going to affect this baby's life. This baby could be mentally retarded if it doesn't get the drug. It is actually a short-term treatment. I think the baby had the drug for just a matter of months and then went off the drug. Talk about short-sighted. Eventually, after 5 days, she was able to get the drug approved. These people were missionaries in Africa. They'd worked in Africa. They didn't have the money. They didn't have the house to mortgage. But they were able to save their little baby's life because finally they fought hard enough to get it covered.